I opened my eyes to the harsh fluorescent lights of the USCIS office, and my heart stopped. No, no, this couldn't be happening. Not again. But there I was, 29 years old, wearing the same cream blouse I'd thrown away years ago, sitting across from Officer Martinez with her severe bun and reading glasses. My husband David sat beside me, his knee bouncing nervously, and on my other side, squeezed into the small chair, was my mother-in-law Patricia, her lips pressed into that tight line I'd come to know so well. Mrs. Chen, Officer Martinez was saying, her voice floating to me through the roar of blood in my ears. I need you to confirm your understanding of what we're discussing here. I knew what came next. God, I knew every word. My sister-in-law needs the green card more than I do, I heard myself say, the words tasteless in my mouth, and I wanted to scream. Our family only qualified for one employment-based green card this year, and Sophie's situation is more urgent. She has her daughter to think about. The lie burned coming out, just like it had the first time. Officer Martinez nodded, making notes. And you understand that by withdrawing your application, you'll be placed back at the end of the queue. Given the current processing times for Chinese nationals, we're looking at another 12 to 15 years before you'd be eligible again. She understands, Patricia cut in, her hand suddenly gripping my knee under the table. Her nails dug in hard enough to leave crescents. My daughter-in-law is very family-oriented. She knows Sophie needs this more. David said nothing. He never did. In my first life, I'd signed the papers. I'd withdrawn my application, and Sophie, pregnant, desperate Sophie who'd overstayed her tourist visa and gotten involved with a married man, had taken my place. The green card that should have been mine, earned through 5 years of brutal hours as a software engineer at a tech startup, went to my husband's sister, who'd never held a job longer than 6 months. And I'd told myself it was fine. That family came first, that I was being selfless. 2 years later, when my H-1B visa wasn't renewed and I was forced to leave the country, Sophie didn't even come to the airport to say goodbye. Patricia had looked me in the eye and said, "Well, you're not really family anymore, are you? Not if you're going back to China." David had filed for divorce 3 months after I left. He'd married his coworker Jennifer before the papers were even finalized. I died alone in a car accident in Shanghai, drowning in bitterness at 34 years old. But then I'd woken up here, in this moment, with this choice in front of me again. Only this time I remembered something I'd forgotten in my first life. Something my grandmother had told me when I was 17, right before I'd left for college in America. "Your great-grandfather was Italian," she'd whispered, pressing a manila envelope into my hand. "From Milan. He married my mother in 1946. I kept all his papers, just in case you ever need them." I'd shoved that envelope in a drawer and never looked at it again. Until now. Until the memories of my entire first life had come flooding back, including the news article I'd seen 3 years before my death about Italy's citizenship laws. Jure sanguinis. Citizenship by blood. No generational limit. I had Italian citizenship. I'd always had it. I just hadn't known. But I knew now. Officer Martinez was sliding the withdrawal form across the desk. "If you could just sign here, Mrs. Chen." I looked at the pen in her hand, at Patricia's expectant face, at David, who still wouldn't meet my eyes. Then I smiled. "Actually," I said, my voice steady and clear, "I'd like to withdraw my husband from this application instead." The room went silent. "Excuse me?" Patricia's voice was sharp. I turned to Officer Martinez, ignoring my mother-in-law completely. "My husband is a derivative beneficiary on my employment-based petition, correct? His green card is dependent on mine?" Officer Martinez blinked, checking her files. "Yes, that's correct." "Then I'm removing him as a beneficiary. I'll proceed with my own application alone." "You can't do that!" Patricia's screech could have shattered glass. "I can, actually." I kept my eyes on the officer. "Check your regulations. The primary applicant can remove derivative beneficiaries at any time before final approval." David's hand grabbed my wrist. "Lily, what are you doing?" I looked at him then, really looked at him. At the man I'd loved for 6 years, who I'd supported through his failed business ventures, who I'd worked 60-hour weeks to sponsor for his green card, who would leave me the moment I was no longer useful. I'm choosing myself, I said. Patricia was on her feet. If you do this, you'll regret it. You'll have no one, no family. I'll have myself. That's more than enough. And Officer Martinez was trying not to smile. I could see it in the corner of her mouth. Mrs. Chen, are you absolutely certain about this decision? Completely certain. Then I'll need your husband to exit the interview. This portion will continue with you alone. David's face had gone purple. You ungrateful, Mr. Chen. Officer Martinez's voice cracked like a whip. You need to leave now. Security escorted them both out. Patricia's screaming echoed down the hallway, something about disrespect, about abandoning family, about how I'd never be anything without them. I signed my paperwork with a steady hand. 3 months later, my green card arrived in the mail, but I didn't stop there. The day after my USCIS interview, I'd taken my grandmother's envelope to an immigration attorney specializing in Italian citizenship. Anna Rossetti had taken one look at my great-grandfather's documents, his birth certificate from Milan, his marriage certificate, his naturalization papers, and smiled. You have everything you need, she'd said. Italy recognizes citizenship through bloodline with no generational limit, and your great-grandfather never renounced his Italian citizenship, even after naturalizing in China. That means your grandmother had Italian citizenship, which means your mother had it, which means you have it. How long will it take? With documents this clean? 8 to 12 months. Maybe less if we're lucky. I'd written the check that same day. I didn't tell David. I didn't tell anyone. At home, things deteriorated rapidly. David stopped speaking to me except to relay messages from his mother. Sophie called me every name she could think of. The family WhatsApp group I'd been removed from apparently spent hours discussing what a selfish snake I was. I didn't care. I went to work. I did my job. I came home to a husband who slept in the guest room and looked at me like I'd murdered his dog. You know, Sophie had to go back to Canada, he said one night, weeks after the USCIS appointment. He was standing in the kitchen doorway while I made dinner. For myself? Only myself. Okay, nay, I said, not looking up from my cutting board. She's devastated. She can't see her daughter's father now. The relationship is over. The relationship with a married man who is never going to leave his wife? That relationship? His jaw worked. You're so cold now. What happened to you? I set down my knife and finally looked at him. I woke up. You've changed. No, I said. I just stopped pretending to be who you wanted me to be. He moved out 2 weeks later, back to his mother's house in New Jersey. I didn't try to stop him. The divorce papers came in April. I signed them without reading them and sent them back the same day. My Italian citizenship was approved in September, 7 months after I'd applied. The letter came with a certificate and a passport application. I was sitting in my apartment now, bought with my own money, after I'd refused to give David half in the divorce when I opened the envelope. The Italian coat of arms gleamed up at me from the certificate. Cittadinanza Italiana. I took a photo and sent it to my mother in Shanghai with a simple message. Guess what Grandma's envelope had in it? She called me immediately, crying, "Your grandmother would be so proud." I wish I'd looked at it sooner. You looked at it when you needed to. That's what matters. I applied for my Italian passport the next day. It arrived in 6 weeks, deep red and embossed with gold. I held it in my hands and felt something shift in my chest. Freedom, real freedom, not dependent on an employer, not dependent on a spouse, not dependent on anyone, just mine. I didn't hear from David or his family for months. I assumed they'd forgotten about me, written me off as the terrible person who'd destroyed their plans. I should have known better. The call came in December, a week before Christmas. Unknown number. Almost didn't answer. Lily? Patricia's voice was sickeningly sweet. How are you, dear? Every muscle in my body tensed. What do you want? Is that any way to greet your mother-in-law? Even if you and David are having troubles, we're still family. We're divorced. I'm not your family. Well, that's actually what I wanted to talk to you about. Her voice shifted, businesslike now. David's been having some difficulties. I waited. His visa status is complicated now. Without the green card application, his H-1B is expiring, and his employer won't sponsor a renewal. He needs, he needs your help. I almost laughed. My help. You still have your green card. You could sponsor him for a marriage-based green card. We just need to delay the divorce finalization for a few years. You want me to commit immigration fraud? I want you to help your husband, the man you made vows to. The man who chose his sister over his wife, who let his mother bully me for 6 years, who filed for divorce the moment I stood up for myself. My voice was cold. That man can figure out his own visa problems. Lily, please. Now she was begging. He'll have to leave the country. Go back to China. His career will be ruined. Then he'll understand how I felt when you tried to do the same thing to me. We gave you everything. A home, a family, a place in this country. You gave me nothing but contempt and demands. And you know what? I don't need you anymore. I don't need any of you. I hung up. She called back 17 times. I blocked the number. Then Sophie called, then David's father, then David himself, alternating between begging and rage. I blocked them all. In January, I got an email from David's lawyer. They were threatening to sue me for abandonment and breach of marital contract. The email was so ridiculous, my own lawyer laughed when she read it. There's no legal basis for any of this, she said. They're grasping at straws. Let them grasp, I said. February brought a different kind of communication. Sophie showed up at my workplace, somehow getting past building security. She cornered me in the lobby, tears streaming down her face. You ruined my life, she sobbed. I had to go back to Canada. I lost everything. My daughter's father won't even take my calls now. I looked at her, really looked at her. In my first life, I'd pitied Sophie. She'd seemed so fragile, so desperate. But now I could see what I'd missed before. The calculation in her eyes, the way she positioned herself as a victim while manipulating everyone around her. You ruined your own life, I said quietly. You came to this country illegally. You got involved with a married man. You got pregnant thinking it would make him leave his wife. And when your family had a chance to get legal status for someone, you convinced them to take it from me. None of that is my fault. I needed it more than you. No, you wanted it more. There's a difference. Security arrived then, alerted by my coworker. They escorted Sophie out while she screamed about how heartless I was, how I'd destroyed her family. I went back to my desk and continued coding. That weekend, I booked a flight to Milan. I'd never been to Italy. In my first life, I'd barely traveled anywhere, too focused on work and saving money and being the perfect daughter-in-law. But now, with my Italian passport, with my freedom, the whole of Europe was open to me. I landed at Malpensa Airport on a crisp March morning. When I presented my Italian passport at immigration, the officer smiled and said, "Benvenuta a casa." Welcome home. Something in my chest cracked open. I spent 2 weeks in Italy. I saw the Duomo, walked through the Galleria, ate pasta that made me want to cry. I took a train to my great-grandfather's village outside Milan, a tiny place called Cerro Maggiore, and found the house where he'd been born. It was still standing, converted into apartments. Now, but the elderly woman who lived on the ground floor invited me in for coffee when I explained who I was. Your great-grandfather was a good man, she said in Italian, while I struggled to follow with my phone's translation app. Everyone said so. It broke the village's heart when he left for China. Do you know why he left? She smiled. For love, of course. He met a Chinese woman who was studying in Milan. They said she was beautiful and brilliant, and he followed her halfway around the world. She patted my hand. Love like that runs in families, I think. You'll find it too. I didn't tell her I'd already tried and failed. Instead, I thanked her and walked through the village, imagining my great-grandfather as a young man, falling in love so completely he'd left everything behind. Maybe that kind of love did run in families, but maybe I was meant to find it in a different way, not in sacrifice and subordination, but in freedom and choice. When I got back to New York, there was a letter waiting for me. Official letterhead, Immigration and Customs Enforcement. My stomach dropped. I opened it with shaking hands, already imagining the worst. But it wasn't what I thought. It was a notification that David Chen was under investigation for immigration fraud. I read it 3 times before it sank in. Apparently, after I'd refused to help him, David had found another solution. He'd paid someone to marry him, a woman named Jessica Torres, who'd agreed to a green card marriage for $30,000. Except Jessica had gotten cold feet and reported him. Now he was facing deportation and possible criminal charges. I should have felt vindicated, triumphant. This was the karma the universe owed me. But instead, I just felt tired. I called my lawyer. "Did you know about this?" "I heard rumors," she admitted. "The immigration bar is small. Word gets around." "What's going to happen to him?" "If they can prove fraud, deportation, definitely. Criminal charges, possibly, though they usually focus on the person who accepted payment. He might just be barred from re-entry for life." The same fate they'd tried to force on me. I thanked her and hung up. That night, Patricia called from a new number. I answered without thinking. "This is your fault," she hissed. "If you'd just helped him—" "If I'd just committed a federal crime, you mean? He's going to lose everything. Then he'll understand how it feels." "You heartless bitch." I hung up and blocked the number, but the calls kept coming. Different numbers, same vitriol. Patricia, Sophie, even David's father, who I'd always thought was relatively reasonable. All of them blamed me. All of them insisted I should have sacrificed myself to save David. None of them seemed to remember that they'd been perfectly happy to sacrifice me first. In April, I got a promotion at work. Senior software engineer with a significant raise in my own team. My manager, Ellen, took me out to a celebrate. "You seem different lately," she said over wine. "Happier?" "I am." "The divorce?" "The freedom," I corrected. "I spent so long trying to be what other people wanted. It's nice to just be myself." She clinked her glass against mine. "To being ourselves." That night, I drafted an email to my grandmother. She'd been gone for 3 years in my first life. Died of a stroke before I was deported. But in this life, she was still alive, still living in the same Shanghai apartment I'd grown up visiting. "Dear Nai Nai," I wrote. "I found the envelope. I found everything. Thank you for knowing I might need it someday. Thank you for giving me a way out, even though you never knew I'd be trapped. Thank you for loving someone so much you kept his papers for 70 years. I understand that kind of love now, the kind that endures, the kind that saves. I love you." She called me the next morning, crying so hard she could barely speak. "I always hoped," she managed. I always thought maybe someday it would matter." "It mattered," I said. It saved my life." In May, David was officially deported. I didn't watch him go. I didn't say goodbye. I simply saw the notification from my lawyer and moved on with my day. Patricia sent me one final message from yet another new number. "I hope you're happy. You destroyed this family." I read it, considered responding, then simply deleted it. She was right about one thing. I was happy. That summer, I used my Italian passport to travel to Paris, to Barcelona, to Prague. I took trains across Europe, stayed in hostels, met other travelers. A group of Australians in Berlin, a couple from Brazil in Vienna, an Italian family in Budapest who insisted I join them for dinner when they heard I was Italian too. "Where in Italy are you from?" the father asked. "My family is from near Milan," I said. "But I grew up in China." "Ah, you're like us then," the mother exclaimed. "We're from Puglia, but we've been everywhere. Italy is in your blood, not your address." I thought about that a lot over the following weeks, about what made someone belong somewhere, about what made a family. In my first life, I'd thought family meant sacrifice, meant making yourself smaller so others could be bigger, meant swallowing your own needs and calling it love. But that wasn't family. That was just servitude with better branding. Real family, the kind my great-grandfather had built with my great-grandmother, the kind my grandmother had honored by keeping his papers all those years. Real family meant protecting each other, lifting each other up, not tearing each other down. The Chens had never been my family. They'd just been people who used me. When I got back to New York in September, I found a letter waiting from Sophie. I almost threw it away unopened. But curiosity won. Inside was a single page, handwritten. Lily, I need help. I'm in trouble. The father of my daughter is suing for custody and trying to get me deported as an unfit mother. He's saying I'm illegal and unstable. I have no money for a lawyer. My family won't help me anymore because they spent everything on David's legal fees. You're the only one who might understand what it's like to be backed into a corner. Please, I know we weren't kind to you. I know we hurt you. But please, if you have any compassion at all. The letter went on for another half page, detailing her dire circumstances, her fear of losing her daughter, her desperation. I read it twice. Then I threw it away. I wasn't heartless. I could imagine how terrified she must be, how desperate. But I also remembered standing in that USCIS office, being pressured to give up my future for her. I remembered how she'd taken it without a word of thanks. How she'd ghosted me the moment I was no longer useful. How she'd shown up at my workplace to scream about how I'd ruined her life. Compassion didn't mean setting yourself on fire to keep someone else warm. I didn't respond. 2 weeks later, my mother called with news from the family network. Sophie had lost custody. She'd been deported back to Canada. Her daughter was staying with her father and his wife in New Jersey. Do you feel bad? My mother asked carefully. I thought about it honestly. No, I feel bad for her daughter, but Sophie made her choices. She has to live with them. Your grandmother would be proud of you, my mother said, for standing up for yourself. I wish I'd done it sooner. You did it when you could. That's what matters. In October, I met Marcus. He was British in New York for a year-long consulting project, and we quite literally bumped into each other at a coffee shop in Brooklyn. He'd turned around with his latte and dumped it directly down my shirt. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. He'd grabbed napkins, trying to help, only making it worse. It's fine, I'd laughed, holding my soaked shirt away from my skin. Really? Let me at least buy you coffee, and maybe a new shirt. We'd ended up talking for 3 hours. He was funny and self-deprecating and seemed genuinely interested in everything I said. When I mentioned my Italian citizenship, his eyes lit up. No way! I'm trying to get mine through my grandmother. She was from Sicily. We compared notes on the process, on the strange feeling of claiming a heritage we'd never quite lived, on the freedom that came with European citizenship. It's like a door opened that I didn't even know was there, I said. Exactly, he leaned forward. All my life I thought I had one path, one option, and then suddenly there's this whole other world available. We started dating casually, nothing serious, nothing intense, just easy, comfortable. He never tried to change me, never suggested I should be softer, quieter, more accommodating. When I told him about my ex-husband and his family, he'd been furious on my behalf. They wanted you to give up your green card for his sister? Family, obligation, I said dryly. That's not family obligation. That's abuse. It was the first time anyone had named it for what it was. In December, exactly 1 year after Patricia's call asking me to commit fraud, I got a call from an unknown number. I'd stopped blocking them all. There were too many, and it was easier to just not answer. But this time, something made me pick up. Lily, it was David. His voice sounded hollow. I know you probably don't want to hear from me. You're right. I'm calling from Shanghai. I've been here for 6 months now, trying to rebuild. And I wanted to say I'm sorry. I waited. My mom, Sophie, they always said you were the problem, that you were selfish and ungrateful, and I believed them because it was easier than admitting they were wrong. Easier than admitting I'd let them bully my wife. He took a shaky breath. I was in my lawyer's office last week, and he asked me why I'd married someone I clearly didn't respect, and I realized I did respect you. I was just scared of standing up to my family. So I let them treat you like you didn't matter. Okay, I said. I don't expect forgiveness. I needed you to know that I know now. I know what I did. What we all did. Thank you for saying that. Are you happy? He asked. I heard you have Italian citizenship now. That you're traveling. That you're doing really well. I am happy. Happier than I've ever been. Good. That's good. You deserved better than what I gave you. Yeah, I said. I did. We hung up. I didn't feel vindicated or triumphant. I just felt sad for the years I'd wasted and grateful for the years I'd reclaimed. On New Year's Eve, Marcus and I went to Times Square, something I'd never done in all my years in New York. It was crowded and cold and chaotic, and I loved every second of it. Resolution for this year? He asked as we counted down. Keep choosing myself, I said. That's a good one. The ball dropped. Fireworks exploded. He kissed me, and I kissed him back, and for the first time in longer than I could remember, I felt perfectly, completely at peace. In March, I got another letter. This one from Patricia. I opened it with Marcus sitting beside me, ready for whatever poison it contained. But it wasn't what I expected. Lily, I am writing to inform you that I am dying. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer. The doctors say I have 3 to 6 months. I am not writing to ask for sympathy or forgiveness. I am writing because I need to say things I should have said years ago. You were a good daughter-in-law. You worked hard. You were kind. You supported my son in ways he never deserved. And I repaid you by treating you as a resource to be used for my other children. I told myself it was about family, about taking care of everyone. But really, it was about control. About making sure Sophie got what she wanted and David never had to face consequences, and I got to play matriarch. I broke your marriage. I broke your life in this country. I broke you, or I tried to. I am glad I failed. I am glad you found a way to survive without us. I am glad you became the kind of person who could walk away from people who hurt her. I don't deserve forgiveness, and I'm not asking for it. I just wanted you to know you were never the problem. We were. Patricia. I read it 3 times. Marcus read over my shoulder. What are you going to do? Nothing, I said. She's right. She doesn't deserve forgiveness. Do you want to see her? Before I thought about it. Really thought about it. No, I said finally. She made her choices. She got to be the person she wanted to be, and that person was cruel. I don't owe her my presence at the end just because she finally grew a conscience. Fair enough. I put the letter in a drawer and didn't think about it again. Patricia died in June. I got a notification from David, a simple text. Mom passed. Thought you should know. Sent back. I'm sorry for your loss. I didn't go to the funeral. In July, Marcus's consulting project ended. We'd been together for 9 months, and I'd started to wonder what would happen when he left. Come with me, he said. Come to London, you can work remotely, can't you? I can, I said slowly. But what? I don't know if I'm ready to uproot my life for someone again. He nodded. That's fair. What if we met in the middle? I'm planning to do the Italian citizenship thing seriously. Spend some time in Sicily getting my documents together. You could come with me. We could explore Italy together. No commitment beyond that. I thought about my great-grandfather, who'd crossed the world for love. About my grandmother, who'd kept his memory alive for decades. About the version of myself who'd died bitter and alone, and the version who'd been reborn into freedom. Okay, I said. Let's go to Italy. We left in September, 2 years after I'd first visited Milan. This time, Marcus and I rented an apartment in Palermo, right in the old city center. I worked remotely for my company, taking calls at odd hours, spending my afternoons wandering through markets and museums. Marcus did his citizenship research. I helped him navigate the bureaucracy, translate documents, fill out endless forms. This is so much harder than your process was, he complained one afternoon, surrounded by papers. Mine was just lucky, I said. All the documents already existed. Your grandmother's papers are scattered across 3 countries. Do you think it's worth it? Do you? He looked out the window at the Sicilian sun, at the Baroque churches and winding streets. Yeah, I think so. We stayed in Palermo for 6 months. Then we moved to Rome for another 3, then Florence. Then back to Milan, where I showed Marcus the village where my great-grandfather had been born. The same elderly woman was still there, a year older but just as welcoming. She made us coffee and pizzelle and told us stories about the village in the old days. Are you two married? She asked. Not yet, Marcus said, squeezing my hand. But maybe someday. She smiled. Love that crosses borders, love that brings you home. That's the best kind. After we left, Marcus turned to me. Did that freak you out, the marriage talk? No, I said, surprised to find it was true. It didn't. Good, because I've been thinking about it. Have you? I want to be clear. I'm not asking you to give anything up. I'm not asking you to sacrifice anything for me. I just want to build a life with you, whatever that looks like. I kissed him in the middle of the street, in the village my great-grandfather had left 100 years ago. Okay, I said, let's build a life. We got married in a small ceremony in Milan that December, 3 years after I'd signed my divorce papers from David. My mother flew in from Shanghai. Marcus's parents came from London. We had dinner at Aisha, tiny trattoria with 20 of our closest friends, and I wore a dress the color of Italian wine. You look happy, my mother said, fixing my hair before the ceremony. I am happy. Your grandmother would have loved this. Loved him. I know. She kissed my cheek. I'm so proud of you, for fighting for yourself, for not giving up. The ceremony was simple. The officiant spoke in Italian, English, and a little bit of Mandarin. We exchanged rings and promises. I promise to never ask you to be smaller, Marcus said, to never ask you to give up your dreams for mine, to build a life where we both get to be ourselves. I promise the same, I said. And I promise to keep choosing myself so I can choose you from a place of wholeness, not need. When we kissed, everyone cheered. That night, lying in our hotel room, Marcus showed me something on his phone. Look. It was a message from his immigration lawyer. His Italian citizenship had been approved. We're both Italian now, he laughed. Officially. We can live anywhere in Europe, I said, the realization hitting me. Anywhere in the world, really. With your green card and our Italian passports, we've got options. Options, freedom, choice. Everything they'd tried to take from me. I got a message the next morning from an unknown number. I almost deleted it, but something made me open it. It was from Sophie. I heard you got married. Congratulations. I'm back in Canada permanently now. I have supervised visitation with my daughter once a month. It's not enough, but it's something. I've been in therapy, trying to understand why I made the choices I made. My therapist says I need to make amends to people I've hurt. I know you don't owe me anything. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I want you to know I'm sorry for taking what should have been yours, for not thanking you, for blaming you when my own life fell apart. You didn't ruin my life. I did. I hope you're happy. I hope your marriage is everything mine wasn't. Sophie. I showed the message to Marcus. Are you going to respond? He asked. I thought about the Sophie I'd known in my first life. Desperate, manipulative, always the victim. And the Sophie who'd written this message. Older, maybe wiser, trying to take responsibility. Yeah, I said. I think I will. I wrote back. Thank you for the apology. I appreciate it. I hope you're able to rebuild your relationship with your daughter. I hope you find peace. Lily. It wasn't forgiveness, not exactly, but it was closure. We spent our honeymoon traveling through southern Italy. Amalfi, Capri, Puglia. We ate pasta and swam in the Mediterranean and talked about where we wanted to settle. What about Milan? Marcus suggested. It's where your family history is. What about your career? I can consult from anywhere. And honestly, I'm thinking about teaching. Maybe at Bocconi or Politecnico. You want to stay in Italy? I want to stay wherever. You are. If that's Italy, if that's New York, if that's Shanghai, I don't care. As long as we're together. We decided on Milan, found an apartment in a beautiful old building near Parco Sempione. I transferred to my company's Milan office. Marcus started teaching part-time at the business school. We built a life that was ours, no one else's. In February, 4 years after my rebirth, I got a letter forwarded from my old New York address. It was from David. I opened it carefully, unsure what to expect. Lily, I'm writing to let you know I'm getting married. Her name is Jiang Wei. We met here in Shanghai. She's a teacher, and she's kind, and she doesn't take any shit from me or my family. I told her everything about you, about what happened. She said I didn't deserve you, and she's right. But she says everyone deserves a second chance at getting it right. I'm trying to get it right this time. I wanted you to know. Not because I need your approval, but because you were a huge part of my life, and even though I ruined it, I'm grateful for what you taught me. You taught me that love isn't supposed to diminish people. It's supposed to help them grow. I'm sorry I learned that lesson too late for us. I hope you found someone who knows that already. David. I put the letter down and looked out the window at the Milan skyline, at the spires of the Duomo in the distance. Good news? Marcus asked, bringing me coffee. I think so, I said. I think David might actually have learned something. Good for him. He kissed the top of my head. You ready for tonight? Tonight we were having dinner with my mother, who was visiting for the month. Tomorrow we were driving to Cerro Maggiore to show her where her grandfather had been born. Ready? I said. That night, over dinner at our favorite restaurant, my mother raised her glass. To my daughter, she said. Who knew when to hold on and when to let go? Who crossed the world twice, once running away, once running toward who found her way home? To finding home, Marcus echoed. I clinked my glass against theirs and thought about the girl I'd been in my first life. The one who'd signed away her future in that USCIS office. The one who'd died bitter and alone. She'd given me the gift of knowing what not to do. The gift of a second chance. And I'd taken that chance and built something beautiful. To finding home, I said. And to choosing yourself first so you can choose everything else from a place of strength. We drank to that. Later that night, after my mother had gone back to her hotel and Marcus was asleep beside me, I pulled out my laptop and did something I'd been thinking about for a while. I started writing. I wrote about a girl who gave up everything for people who didn't deserve it. About a second chance. About finding strength in unexpected places. About citizenship and family and freedom. I wrote for hours, the words pouring out of me like water from a broken dam. When I finally stopped, the sun was rising over Milan, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. Marcus stirred beside me. What are you doing up? Writing, I said. Writing what? My story, our story. A story about choosing yourself. He smiled sleepily. That's a good story. Yeah, I said, looking at the words on my screen, at the light streaming through our window, at the man I'd chosen to love and who chose me back every day. It really is. I published the story online 6 months later in a collection of essays about immigration and identity and second chances. It went viral in Chinese immigrant communities, translated and shared thousands of times. I got messages from people who'd given up their dreams for family obligations, from people who'd been pressured to sacrifice themselves, from people who'd found their own hidden edges, dual citizenships, secret savings accounts, escape routes they'd built quietly while everyone else tried to control them. Your story gave me courage, one woman wrote. I've been supporting my husband's entire family for 10 years. Yesterday I told them no more. Thank you for showing me it's possible to choose myself. I found out I have Irish citizenship through my great-grandmother, another wrote. I never thought to look. Your story made me look. I'm leaving my abusive marriage next month. I have somewhere to go now. The messages kept coming. Hundreds of them. Thousands. And I realized that my rebirth, the inexplicable miracle of waking up in the past with my memories intact, hadn't just been about saving myself. It had been about showing others they could save themselves too. In October, 5 years after I'd first opened my eyes in that USCIS office, Marcus and I went back to Cerro Maggiore. The elderly woman had passed away, but her daughter welcomed us, showing us the house, the village, the church where my great-grandparents would have married if they'd stayed. Do you ever regret it? Marcus asked as we walked through the old streets. Giving up your life in America? I didn't give it up, I said. I chose something different. There's a difference. Fair point. We stood in the village square, surrounded by centuries of history, and I thought about all the choices that had led me here. My great-grandfather choosing love over home. My grandmother choosing to keep his memory alive. Me choosing myself over the people who'd tried to make me small. No regrets, I said. Not a single one. That night, we had dinner at a small restaurant in the village. The owner, an elderly man who'd known my great-grandfather's family, insisted on cooking for us himself. Your great-grandfather was brave, he said, setting down plates of homemade pasta, leaving everything he knew for an uncertain future. But brave isn't the same as reckless. He left because he knew what he wanted was worth more than what he had. I think I understand that, I said. He smiled. I think you do. After dinner, Marcus and I walked back to our hotel under a sky full of stars. I've been thinking, he said, about what's next. What's next? I got offered a permanent position at the university, full-time tenure track. That's amazing. Why do you sound worried? I'm not worried. I just wanted to make sure you're okay with staying here long-term. I know you love New York. I know you have your green card, your options. I stopped walking and turned to face him. Marcus, I don't want to live in New York. I want to live wherever we're building our life together. If that's Milan, if that's London, if that's Shanghai, it doesn't matter. Because I'm not looking for a place anymore. I'm looking for a home. And you're my home. He kissed me, there in the middle of the ancient street, in the village my great-grandfather had left a century ago. You're my home too, he said. We decided to stay in Milan. Marcus took the position. I got promoted to lead a new project at work. We bought an apartment with a balcony overlooking the city. We built a life that was completely, perfectly ours. One afternoon in December, 6 years after my rebirth, I got a package from Shanghai. My mother's handwriting on the label. Inside was a leather-bound book, a journal, old and worn. Your grandmother's, the note said. She wanted you to have it. She wrote about her parents, their love story, their choices. She wrote about you too before she died, about how proud she was. I think she knew you'd need this someday. Love, Mom. I opened the journal carefully. The entries were in Chinese, in my grandmother's careful hand. The first entry was dated 1975. Today, my mother told me the full story of how she met my father. She was studying in Milan, one of the first Chinese students allowed to study abroad after the war, and he was a teacher at the university. They fell in love despite everything, language, culture, politics. When it was time for her to return to China, he didn't hesitate. He packed a single bag and followed her. Everyone said he was crazy, that he'd regret it, but he told them, a life of safety without love isn't a life. It's just existing. They were married for 43 years until he died. My mother never remarried. She said she'd had the great love of her life. Anything else would be settling. I hope I'm as brave as they were. I hope I teach my daughter to be brave too. I kept reading, tears streaming down my face. There were entries about my grandmother's life, her marriage, her daughter, my mother, and then, later, entries about me. Lily was born today. She looks like my father, I think. I hope she has his courage. I hope she knows when to hold on and when to let go. I'm keeping all of his papers for her, just in case. Just in case she needs a door that no one else knows about. Everyone should have a secret door. Everyone should have a way out. The last entry was dated a week before she died in this timeline. I'm old, now and tired, but I'm not afraid. I've lived a good life. I've loved and been loved. I've watched my granddaughter grow into a woman who knows her own worth. That's all anyone can ask for. If you're reading this, Lily, and I think you are, know this. The bravest thing you can ever do is choose yourself. Not selfishly, not cruelly, but firmly. Know your worth, know your options. Never let anyone convince you that you are trapped. There's always a door. Sometimes you just have to build it yourself. I love you. I'm proud of you. Live well. Nai. I closed the journal and held it to my chest, sobbing. Marcus found me like that, curled up on the couch with my grandmother's journal. Hey, he said softly, sitting beside me. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong, I managed. Everything's right. She knew. My grandmother knew I'd need this. She knew I'd need to know that it's okay to choose yourself. It is okay, he said, holding me. It's more than okay. It's necessary. That night, I added a new entry to the journal, in English this time, but in the same spirit. Dear Nai, I found your door. I walked through it. I built a life on the other side that I never could have imagined. Thank you for showing me that love doesn't mean sacrifice, that family doesn't mean servitude, that choosing yourself is the bravest thing you can do. I'm passing this journal on to my daughter someday, if I have one, and I'll make sure she knows you are never trapped. There's always a door. Sometimes you inherit it. Sometimes you have to build it. But it's always there. I love you. I'm living well. Lily. On Christmas Eve, Marcus and I hosted dinner at our apartment. My mother was there, having moved to Milan permanently after retiring. Marcus's parents came from London, a few friends from work, from the neighborhood, from our Italian class. We cooked together, laughed together, ate until we were stuffed. Speech, someone called out after dinner. Marcus looked at me. You want to? I stood, raising my glass, looking around at the faces of people who'd chosen to be in my life and who I'd chosen back. 6 years ago, I said, I woke up with a second chance. I don't know why I got it. I don't know if it was magic or quantum mechanics or just a very vivid dream, but I got to do my life over, and this time I did it differently. This time I chose myself, not instead of love, but as the foundation for it. And because I chose myself, I got to choose all of you. I got to build this life, this family, this home. So thank you for being the kind of people worth choosing, for choosing me back, for showing me what real family looks like. Everyone raised their glasses. To choosing yourself, my mother said. To second chances, Marcus added. To family, I finished. The one you're born with and the one you build. We drank together and I looked around the table at my life. My real life, the one I'd fought for and built from scratch, and felt nothing but gratitude. Later that night, after everyone had gone home, Marcus pulled me onto the balcony. The city was lit up below us, twinkling in the cold December air. I have something for you, he said. We agreed no Christmas presents until tomorrow. This isn't a Christmas present. It's a just because present. He handed me an envelope. Inside were 2 tickets to Shanghai and a printed email. I read the email twice before I understood. You found him? I whispered. I found him. Your great-grandfather's village in China. The house where he lived with your great-grandmother. It's still there. It's a museum now, actually. A memorial to Chinese-Italian cultural exchange. Your great-grandmother's family donated it. I stared at the email, at the photos of a traditional Chinese house with Italian architectural details. My great-grandparents' house, their home. How did you... I've been researching for 6 months. I wanted to give you the other half of your history, the Chinese half. I kissed him there on our balcony overlooking Milan and thought about how far I'd come. From that USCIS office where I'd almost given up everything, to this balcony where I had everything I'd never known I wanted. Thank you, I said, for seeing me, for knowing what I need before I know it myself. That's what love is, he said. Seeing someone completely and loving what you see. We went to Shanghai in February. My mother came with us, eager to see the house she'd heard stories about but never visited. It was exactly as the photos had shown, a traditional courtyard house with Italian flourishes, marble columns alongside wooden screens, European furniture mixed with Chinese antiques. The curator, an elderly woman named Dr. Wang, greeted us personally. "We've been hoping someone from the family would visit," she said. "We have so many questions about their life together." She showed us through the house, pointing out details. The kitchen where my great-grandmother had taught my great-grandfather to cook Chinese food. The study where they'd worked together, her on her mathematics research, him on his Italian translations. The bedroom where my grandmother had been born. "They were remarkable," Dr. Wang said. She was one of the first Chinese women to earn a doctorate in mathematics. He gave up everything in Italy to support her work. They broke every rule together. "That sounds like them," I said. In the study, Dr. Wang showed us a collection of letters my great-grandparents had written to friends and family over the years. One letter from my great-grandfather to his brother in Italy made me cry. "You ask if I regret leaving Milan," it read, "Anasis. You ask if I miss my life there. The truth is, I don't miss it at all, because that was a life of supposed to. I was supposed to take over father's business, supposed to marry the girl from the next village, supposed to stay in the place I was born and never ask for more. But then I met Zhang Mei, and I understood there are two kinds of life, the life others want for you and the life you want for yourself. I chose the second kind, and I'd choose it again every day. I hope you find the courage to choose for yourself, too. Alessandro." I took a photo of the letter and sent it to David. He wrote back an hour later, "Thank you for this. I'm trying to choose for myself now. It's harder than it looks." I wrote back, "It gets easier. Keep choosing." We spent a week in Shanghai, visiting my great-grandparents' house every day, learning their story, understanding where I came from. On our last day, Dr. Wang pulled me aside. "We're planning an exhibition about cross-cultural families," she said, "about people who chose love over convention. Would you be willing to contribute your story, your great-grandparents' legacy, and your own?" "My story?" "You gave up your life in America and built a new one in Italy. You chose love and freedom over security and convention. That's exactly the kind of story we want to tell." I thought about it. About the girl in the USCIS office who'd almost signed away her future. About the woman on the balcony in Milan who'd built a life beyond her wildest dreams. "Yes," I said, "yes, I'll contribute my story." The exhibition opened in October, 7 years after my rebirth. It was called Crossing Borders, Love and Courage in Cross-Cultural Families. My great-grandparents had their own section with photos and letters and artifacts, and next to it was my section, The Granddaughter's Journey. There were photos of me in Milan, in the village in Cerro Maggiore on my wedding day, copies of my Italian citizenship certificate and my passport, and text panels telling my story, not the rebirth part, but the real part. The part about choosing myself, about finding hidden doors, about building a life across borders. The exhibition traveled to Milan, to New York, to Toronto. Everywhere it went, people reached out to me with their own stories of escape and reinvention. "You showed me it's possible," they said. "You showed me I'm not trapped." On the 10-year anniversary of my rebirth, I woke up in our Milan apartment and, just for a moment, wondered if I'd dream it all. But then Marcus rolled over and kissed me, and I knew it was real. "Happy anniversary, Bone," he said. "It's not our wedding anniversary." "No, it's your rebirth anniversary. 10 years since you got your second chance." I'd told him the truth about the rebirth a year into our marriage. I'd been terrified he'd think I was crazy, but he'd just held my hand and said, "However it happened, I'm grateful for it." 10 years, I said, marveling. "It feels like a lifetime ago." It was a lifetime ago. A different life entirely. We had breakfast on the balcony, watching the city wake up below us. "What do you want to do today?" Marcus asked. "I want to call David," I said. He raised his eyebrows. "Really?" "Really, I want to tell him I forgive him." I'd been thinking about it for a while. David had rebuilt his life in Shanghai. He'd married Zhang Wei, and they had a daughter now. He sent me photos sometimes of his family, his life. He'd changed, really changed. Became the kind of husband and father he should have been the first time around. And holding on to anger at who he used to be seemed pointless when he was actively choosing to be different. I called him that afternoon. "Lily," he said, surprised, "is everything okay?" Everything's fine. I just wanted to tell you something. Okay, I forgive you. For all of it. For the green card, for your family, for being weak when I needed you to be strong. I forgive you. He was quiet for a long moment. Then, thank you. I don't deserve it, but thank you. You're right. You don't deserve it. But I'm not forgiving you for you. I'm forgiving you for me. Because I don't want to carry it anymore. I understand. And Lily, I'm really glad you're happy. You deserve every bit of happiness you have. So do you. Keep being the person you're trying to be. After I hung up, Marcus hugged me from behind. How do you feel? He asked. Light, I said. Like I just set down something heavy I've been carrying for years. That night, we went to dinner at our favorite restaurant. The owner, Antonio, greeted us like family. Which, in a way, we were. We'd been coming here once a week for 5 years. The usual? He asked. Please. While we waited for our food, I looked around at the restaurant full of people. Families, couples, friends. All of them with their own stories, their own choices, their own doors they'd walked through or built. Do you ever wonder, I said to Marcus, what your life would have been like if we'd never met? Sometimes. It would have been fine, probably, but fine isn't the same as extraordinary. No, I agreed. It's really not. Our food arrived, the pasta we'd eaten on our first date, the same meal we'd had at our wedding, the dish we ordered every anniversary. To 10 years, Marcus said, raising his glass. To choosing ourselves, I said, Pim, to building a life worth living. We clinked glasses and drank, and I thought about the woman I'd been 10 years ago. The one who'd signed away her future without a fight. The one who'd died bitter and alone. She'd given me the gift of knowing what not to do. And I'd taken that gift and built something beautiful, not perfect. No life was perfect, but mine. Completely, absolutely mine. And that was more than enough. That was everything.